My name is Michael Walsh, and this is the story of how a single act of betrayal gutted my family. How a priceless heirloom became the battleground for greed, loyalty, and vengeance, and how I clawed through lies, lawsuits, and heartbreak to reclaim a piece of our past. This isn't a tale of forgiveness or tearful reunions. It's a raw, searing wound of a story about a $150,000 antique clock. A father who chose his demons over his legacy, and a family that turned on me when I dared to fight for what was right. I'm telling this because the truth deserves to be heard, because I'm done carrying their shame, and because I want you to know, sometimes, the people you'd bleed for are the ones who'll sell your soul for a handful of coins. It was a bitter November morning in 2022, the kind of day where the Boston wind cuts through you like a blade. I was 29, a software engineer who'd carved out a decent life in a city that never sleeps easy. My apartment in Back Bay was small, but mine, paid for by years of coding through migraines and deadlines. My family wasn't rich, not in money anyway, but we had something rarer: history, etched into a 19th century mahogany grandfather clock that had stood in our home for generations. Picture it, a towering masterpiece, its wood carved with intricate Celtic knots, its brass pendulum swinging like the heartbeat of our lineage, its chimes singing tales of survival. My great-grandfather carried it from Ireland in 1847, through famine and storms, to a new world. My grandfather guarded it through the Great Depression, polishing it even when he had nothing else. My father, Patrick, swore to protect it, calling it the soul of the Walshes. Appraised at $150,000, it wasn't just an object, it was our proof that we'd endured, that we were more than our scars. But Dad was a broken man. At 58, he was a ghost of the carpenter who taught me to swing a hammer. Alcohol and gambling had hollowed him out, turning him into a debtor who begged, borrowed, and lied to feed his vices. He'd hit me up for cash countless times, $5,000 for rent, $7,000 for a fresh start, and I'd paid, hoping each time would be the last. My mother, Ellen, was his enabler, her voice soft with excuses. "He's struggling, Michael. Be patient." My younger sister, Caitlin, was worse, a 25-year-old who worshipped Dad, calling me cold when I pushed him to get clean. The clock, though? That was untouchable. Dad would rest his hand on its wood, his eyes misty, and say, "This stays with us, Mikey. Always." I believed him. I was a fool. That morning I drove to my parents' house in Quincy, a weathered colonial that creaked with memories. I checked on the clock every few weeks, not because I doubted Dad, but because a gnawing fear had taken root in my gut. The house was quiet when I arrived, the air thick with the sour tang of whiskey. Dad was sprawled on the couch, his eyes bloodshot, a half-empty bottle on the coffee table. "Hey, Mikey," he mumbled, barely glancing up. My gaze went to the corner where the clock had stood for decades, its chimes a constant in my childhood. The corner was empty. My heart stopped, a cold fist squeezing my chest. "Dad," I said, my voice low, "where's the clock?" He froze, his eyes darting to the floor, and I knew. "I had to sell it," he stammered, his voice barely a whisper. "I owed some guys, Mikey. Bad guys. They were gonna break my legs." The words hit like a sledgehammer. "You sold it?" I repeated, my voice rising, trembling. "The clock? Our family's clock?" He nodded, shame flickering across his face before he hardened. "It's just a thing, Mike. I got $8,000 for it at a pawn shop. Paid off the debt, it's done." $8,000. For a $150,000 heirloom that carried our bloodline's story. I was shaking, rage and grief crashing together, my vision blurring. "You sold our legacy for $8,000? I shouted, stepping closer. "To pay off your gambling debts? Are you kidding me?" He stood, his face twisting with defiance. "Don't you dare lecture me, boy. You don't know what it's like, having those guys breathing down your neck. I did what I had to do." I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The clock wasn't just wood and brass. It was my great-grandfather's courage, my grandfather's resilience, our identity. and he'd traded it for a fraction of its worth, for a quick fix to his self-inflicted mess. I grabbed my keys and stormed out, his voice trailing after me, a pathetic mix of excuses and curses. The door slammed behind me, the sound echoing in the gray morning, but I barely heard it. My mind was racing, my heart pounding with one thought. I had to find the clock. I had to fix this, no matter the cost. I drove straight to the pawn shop, a dingy storefront in South Boston, its windows plastered with faded signs promising cash now. The owner, a wiry man with a cigarette dangling from his lips, leaned against the counter, unimpressed by my urgency. "Yeah, I bought a clock like that," he said, exhaling smoke. "Big old thing, fancy carvings, sold it 2 days ago to a collector in New York. Got $12,000 for it." 12,000. He'd made a profit, and I was left with nothing. "Who bought it?" I demanded, my voice sharp. He shrugged, flicking ash onto the floor. "Some rich guy, didn't leave a name. Out of my hands now." I begged for details, a receipt, a phone number, anything, but he waved me off, saying he didn't keep that stuff. I left with a crumpled pawn ticket and a fire in my chest. The clock was out there, in the hands of some faceless collector, and I wouldn't rest until it was back where it belonged. That night, I called my mother, hoping she'd be as outraged as I was, hoping she'd stand with me. Instead, her voice was weary, laced with denial. "Michael, it's just a clock," she said, as if I'd lost a trinket. "Your father was in trouble. Those men were dangerous. Let it go." Let it go? She didn't understand. The clock was our history, our pride, the one thing that made us more than our failures. I tried Caitlin next, but she was worse, texting me a wall of venom. "Stop being so dramatic, Mike. Dad needed the money. You're acting like he sold your soul. Grow up." My soul? Maybe he had. I was alone, the only one who cared, the only one who saw the clock for what it was. Our anchor, our truth. I couldn't sleep, the clock's chimes haunting my dreams, a ghostly echo of what I'd lost. I hired a private investigator, Elena Torres, a sharp-eyed woman who'd tracked down stolen art from museums. She cost $6,000 up front, but I didn't blink. I'd sell my car, my furniture, my future, if it meant saving the clock. Elena worked fast, tracing the sale to a high-end auction house in Manhattan, where the clock was listed for a gala auction in 10 days, starting bid $180,000. The buyer was Victor Langston, a hedge fund tycoon with a penthouse full of rare antiques. I emailed him, pouring my heart out, offering $130,000, every penny I'd saved, to buy it back. His reply was a single line: "Market value is $250,000. Take it or leave it." $250,000. More than my life's worth, more than I could borrow without losing everything. I was drowning. But I wasn't done. I flew to New York, crashing at a roach-infested motel near Penn Station, and showed up at the auction house, a glittering fortress of wealth on the Upper East Side. The staff were polite but dismissive, refusing to let me see Langston without an appointment. I waited outside for hours, my breath visible in the freezing air, until I spotted him, a tall, silver-haired man in a cashmere coat stepping out of a black SUV. I ran up, my voice desperate. "Mr. Langston, please, I'm Michael Walsh. The clock you bought, it's my family's. It's been with us for generations. I'll pay anything to get it back." He barely glanced at me, his smile cold. "Sentiment doesn't pay, kid. Bid at the auction or get lost." He brushed past me, his security guard shoving me aside, and disappeared into the building. The auction was a circus of excess, a ballroom packed with Manhattan's elite, their diamonds glinting under chandeliers. The clock stood on a velvet-draped pedestal, its mahogany glowing like a beacon, its chimes ringing softly as the auctioneer introduced it. A 19th-century Irish masterpiece, valued at $200,000. My stomach churned. I'd scraped together $140,000, maxing out credit cards and borrowing from a friend. But I knew it wouldn't be enough. The bid started at $100,000, climbing fast. $120,000, $150,000, $180,000. Langston's paddle rose with each call, his smirk infuriating. I bid $140,000, my hands shaking, my voice cracking, but the number soared past me. At $220,000, I was out, my heart sinking as the gavel fell to Langston's final bid of $230,000. The crowd applauded, a hollow sound as the clock was wheeled away, its chimes fading into the abyss. I'd failed. I returned to Boston, hollowed out, my savings gone, my hope shattered. I confronted Dad again, needing something. Remorse, an apology, anything to make sense of the betrayal. He was at the house, drunk as usual, sprawled in his recliner with a cigarette burning in the ashtray. "You're back," he slurred, his eyes dull. "Thought you'd give up by now." I stood over him, my voice shaking. "Why, Dad? Why the clock? You knew what it meant. You knew it was us." He laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "Us? There's no us, Mikey. It's just a thing. I needed the money. You don't get it." I grabbed his collar, my rage boiling over. "You didn't just sell a clock. You sold our history. You sold who we are." He shoved me back, his face red. "You're no son of mine if you can't let this go. Get out." I left, his words echoing like a curse. My mother was next, her voice dripping with guilt trips when I called. "Michael, you're breaking your father's heart," she said, as if I were the villain. "He's trying to fix things. Why can't you forgive him?" Forgive him? He'd traded our legacy for a gambling fix, and she wanted me to shrug it off. Caitlin took it further, posting a photo of her and Dad on Instagram with a caption, "Family sticks together, no matter what. Some people need to learn what love means." The comments were a knife. Cousins, aunts, old friends piling on, calling me selfish, obsessed, a disgrace to the Walsh name. I was the bad guy now, the son who couldn't let go, the brother who cared more about stuff than blood. They didn't see the clock for what it was, our pride, our survival, the one thing that made us whole. The betrayal spread like wildfire. My extended family turned on me, unfriending me on social media, whispering that I was unhinged, that I'd lost my mind over an old clock. My cousin Brian, Dad's nephew, sent me a message. "You're pathetic, Mike. It's just a thing. Let Dad live." Let him live? Dad was killing himself, and he'd taken our legacy down with him. The worst came when I got a call from my boss. Someone, probably Caitlin, had sent him an anonymous email, accusing me of instability over my obsession with a family dispute. I kept my job, but the damage was done. Colleagues whispered, my reputation bruised. I was alone, cornered, my world shrinking to one thought: I had to get the clock back. Alina, my PI, suggested a new path: sue my father for theft and emotional distress. The clock was a family heirloom, not his to sell, she said, her voice steady. You have a case, especially with the pawn shop's lowball purchase. We can also go after the shop for negligence. Suing my own father felt like a betrayal, a line I'd never imagined crossing. But his actions left me no choice. I hired Daniel Weiss, a lawyer with a reputation for winning property disputes, and we filed a lawsuit against Dad, seeking $150,000 in damages and a court order to recover the clock from Langston. We added a claim against the pawn shop, arguing they'd knowingly undervalued the clock to flip it for profit. The total cost was $10,000 up front, but I paid it, my savings now a husk of what they'd been. The lawsuit was a match to gasoline. My mother called, her voice a mix of tears and rage. Michael, how could you do this to your father? You're dragging us through the mud. Caitlin's texts were worse, a barrage of hate. You're a disgusting excuse for a son. Suing Dad? You're dead to me. My aunts and uncles cut contact, their silence a wall of judgment. Dad showed up at my apartment one night, pounding on the door, his voice slurred but vicious. You think you can ruin me, Mikey? I'll bury you first. You'll see. I didn't open the door, my hands trembling as I called security, but his words lingered, a reminder that the man who'd raised me was gone, replaced by a stranger who'd sell anything for a bet. The legal battle was a war of attrition, draining my money, my energy, my soul. Daniel was a pit bull. uncovering evidence that turned the tide. The pawnshop's records showed they'd appraised the clock at $50,000 internally, but bought it for $8,000, banking on a quick resale. We subpoenaed Dad's bank statements, revealing he'd blown the $8,000 on sports betting within 48 hours, placing bets on horse races and football games. The most damning evidence was a letter Dad had written to my grandfather in 1990, promising to guard the clock for future Walshes. Daniel read it in court, his voice resonant. Patrick Walsh vowed to honor his family's legacy, yet he sold it for a fraction of its worth to feed his addiction. This is not a mistake, it's theft. I took the stand, my throat tight, my eyes burning as I faced the jury. The clock isn't just an object, I said, my voice cracking. It's my great-grandfather's journey from Ireland. It's my grandfather's survival through poverty. It's who we are. My father knew that, and he sold it anyway, like it was nothing. I told them about the auction, the loans, the desperation, my voice breaking as I admitted how much I'd lost. The jury watched, some leaning forward, others wiping their eyes, their faces a mix of pity and respect. Dad's testimony was a train wreck, defensive, incoherent, blinging bad luck and pressure. Michael's blowing it out of proportion, he whined. It's just a clock. The jury's expressions hardened, and I knew he'd lost them. The courtroom wasn't the only war zone. Dad fought dirty outside, spreading lies to anyone who'd listen. He told our neighbors I was extorting him, that I'd always been greedy. Caitlin escalated, posting a Twitter thread that went viral. My brother's suing our dad over an old clock because he's obsessed with money. Family means nothing to him. Shame on you, Mike. Thousands retweeted, strangers calling me a spoiled brat, a heartless son, a money-grubbing jerk. I got death threats, emails telling me to drop the case or regret it. One night, someone keyed my car, carving traitor into the paint. I was terrified, but I was angrier. They wanted me to break, but I wouldn't. The drama peaked when Caitlin showed up at my office, bursting into the lobby, screaming for everyone to hear. You're destroying our family, Michael. You're killing Dad with this lawsuit. My colleagues stared, my boss hovering awkwardly as security escorted her out. She left a note on my windshield. You'll lose everything, just like you deserve. I kept it, handing it to Daniel as evidence of harassment. The betrayal cut deeper than I'd expected. A reminder that my sister, once my closest ally, had chosen Dad's lies over me. The trial dragged into 2023. Each day a fresh scar. I'd lost 15 pounds, my sleep replaced by nightmares of the clock's chimes. My apartment felt like a cell, my life shrinking to court dates and legal bills. But I clung to one thought. I was fighting for more than myself. I was fighting for my ancestors, for the hands that carved the clock, for the hearts that carried it. The verdict came on a snowy March morning, the courtroom packed with reporters sniffing out a juicy story. The judge's voice was steady. The court finds Patrick Walsh liable for theft and emotional distress. He is ordered to pay Michael Walsh $150,000 in damages. The pawn shop is liable for $50,000 for negligence. The clock is to be returned to Michael Walsh, pending recovery from Victor Langston. The room erupted, gasps, murmurs, Dad's angry shout. I sat frozen, relief and exhaustion crashing over me like a wave. I'd won, but it felt hollow, the victory tainted by what I'd lost. My mother sat in the back, her face a mask of disappointment, as if I'd betrayed her. Caitlin stormed out, her heels clicking like gunfire. Dad glared at me, his eyes burning with hate. You'll regret this, Mikey, he hissed as he passed, his lawyer pulling him away. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The truth had spoken. The aftermath was a battlefield of its own. Langston fought the court order, his lawyers filing appeals, claiming he'd bought the clock in good faith. Daniel countered with a lien on Langston's assets, and after months of wrangling, we secured a seizure order. I flew to New York when the clock was retrieved, my heart pounding as I entered Langston's penthouse, a sterile palace of glass and steel. The clock stood in his study, its mahogany scratched but unbroken, its chime still resonant. I ran my fingers over the carvings, tears blurring my vision, and whispered, "I'm sorry it took so long." The movers packed it carefully, and I paid $25,000 in legal fees to get it home, bringing my total cost to $175,000, more than its appraised value. But it wasn't about money, it was about honor. About keeping a promise my father had broken. The media went wild, headlines screaming, "Son sues father over $150K heirloom. Boston family feud ends in courtroom showdown." I posted my story on Reddit, a raw, unfiltered account of the truth, and it exploded. Thousands of strangers offering support, sharing their own tales of family betrayal. It was a lifeline, a reminder that I wasn't alone, but my family was gone. Mom sent one text, "You've torn us apart, Michael. I hope it was worth it." I didn't reply. Caitlin's last message was a single word, "monster." I blocked them all, their voices fading into the void where my trust used to be. I keep the clock in my new apartment, a smaller place in Somerville, locked in a custom glass case. Its chimes fill the silence, a daily reminder of what I fought for. I sold my car, took a second job, and rebuilt my life, leaner but stronger. Dad's out of my life, last I heard living in a halfway house, still gambling, still blaming everyone but himself. Mom and Caitlin cut contact, their silence louder than any words. The extended family shuns me, their whispers a faint echo now. I don't care. They chose their side, and I chose mine. The money from the lawsuit sits in a trust, untouched, a bitter reminder of what I lost. I walk Boston streets at dusk, the city's pulse steadying my own, and I think of the clock, not the pain, not the betrayal, but the hands that carved it, the hearts that carried it. I won the fight, but the scars remain, etched into every tick and tock. I'm building a new life, surrounded by friends who value me, not my battles. But I'll never forget the lesson. Family isn't blood, it's loyalty, and mine failed that test. So here I am, telling my story, not for pity, but for truth. If you're listening, know this. Fight for what matters, even when it breaks you, even when it's family. Because sometimes, the only way to honor the past is to stand up to those who'd sell it cheap. And sometimes the only way to heal is to wind the clock, lock the door, and never look back.